one of the many exciting things about joining Live was being able to come here and play in front of a Spanish crowd, especially on a level of event and level of competition that I hadn't really yet enjoyed, right? I've been able to play events in Spain.
You're in the beautiful Valderrama, which some say is the European Augusta. It's so special. There's so much history here. There's so much Spanish history here.
Well, it has so much history behind. It's only a 50 years old club, but so much has happened through the years. I mean, we had the Ryder Cup, we had World Gold Championships, and now we have Live.
1, 2, 3, 2, 1.
I feel like when there's this wind in this golf course is so difficult that it's equally stressful no matter when or where you're playing it. But it was fun. It's always fun to be back home and be with the home crowd. It's always a joy to have this many people supporting me all day. It's so much fun.
OMG, what did we just witness? Our first ever double playoff in Live Golf history. I am so pumped up right now.
So much happened on the last 5 minutes. I mean, it looked like it was going to the Crushers and Annie Barton winning, and all of a sudden then Aram holding a chip, David Puig birdie eight, then that little putt from Annie Barton on the last. I mean, it was great watching.
You know, it's really amazing to be able to do it in your home country, in front of my family, in front of so many friends, and on my favorite golf course. So it's obviously super nice.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. The Olympics are upon us. NFL training camp officially underway for all 32 teams. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is coming next week. We've got a lot of news to cover here on the show. Thanks for watching or listening wherever you are consuming this show here on this Wednesday. But of course, we've got controversy to talk about here with soccer as the Olympics ready to get underway. We'll get to that here in just a second. Also, Matthew Waters will join us from Legal Sports Report with the very latest on sports betting. Mike DeCourcy will weigh in as Olympic soccer begins on both the men's and women's side. He'll tell us what we could potentially expect. Also, Aram Leighton will join us of Just Baseball to talk about the trade deadline. So fast, furious, and everything that you can handle here on the show today, as we'll try to deliver all the news to you in just 1 hour. That's the time we got, so let's get started. We do start with a very big controversy already before the Olympics even begun. You thought the sign-stealing scandal at Michigan and the New England Patriots was big. Well, how about the Olympics? How about this? The football ferns of New Zealand allegedly spied on by a drone ahead of their upcoming game at the Paris Olympics. A drone operator has been identified as a support staff member of the wider Canadian women's football team, a.k.a. soccer, detained by police. How about this? The incident happened at the New Zealand women's training facility on Monday. New Zealand is going to face Canada in their first match of pool play this Friday, and the Olympic Committee has already made some decisions, or at least we think they have, although not official. Canada has decided that their coach will not coach the game on Friday. Bev Priestman has removed herself from the match against the team. Also, Joseph Lombardi, the unaccredited member, also removed alongside assistant coach Jasmine Mander. Also, the Canadian soccer staff has got to undergo ethics training. So how about that? Ahead of the Olympics, sending in a drone, try and figure out what the opponent's going to do. Not the smartest idea in the world. Needless to say, Canada, I would assume, not going to be rooted for very heavily going into the Olympics, no doubt about that. All right, let's get to the very latest in college and this antitrust lawsuit that has been going on now for a while. The full settlement agreed of antitrust lawsuits involving the NCAA and college sports' wealthiest conferences is expected to be filed with a federal court by the end of the week, an attorney told the defendants of the Associated Press on Tuesday. The NCAA, the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Southeastern Conference agreed on May 23rd to a $2.77 billion settlement with antitrust lawsuits that were challenging limits on college athlete compensation. We know the world has changed. College athletes are being paid, and so backtracking, trying to get paid for millions of dollars, that essentially was lost. Now, in terms of soccer going on at the Olympics right now, we already have one major upset brewing as we speak. Argentina was favored to beat Morocco. In fact, Morocco was 3-1 just to win the match, and as we stand right now, in match number 1 this morning, Morocco leads Argentina by a score of 2-1. So we'll keep an eye on this for you. Mike DeCourcy will be with us in just a few minutes to give us the very latest on that. Meanwhile, what a great start yesterday it was for Paul Skeens. Over 100 pitches, goes into the 8th inning. Couldn't get his team any, his offense couldn't give him any kind of lead, couldn't score any kind of runs, ends up giving up 2 runs in a very tough loss for him. You could probably say that this was the best start of his young career and his first appearance since the All-Star game, but he does take the loss against the St. Louis Cardinals. And Skeens right now, one of the favorites to win the National League Cy Young, probably going to win the Rookie of the Year also. He talked about the tough loss after the game yesterday.
I felt good. The complicated thing there is when I come out with no hitters or whatever in the 6th or 7th inning, the reason that I'm coming out in the 6th or 7th inning at 100 pitches is because I had some longer innings. Those were, relatively quick, low stress, low pressure innings. So kind of allowed me to keep going, but I felt good.
To what do you attribute the efficiency early to allow you to keep pitching all the way to the 9th?
Their approach. They were just trying to, jump me a little bit, and that allowed me to get some quick outs, in those first, really throughout the game.
We'll see what happens with Skeens when he gets another start next week, and if he climbs up the top of the charts for the National League Cy Young Award winner. All right, back to the Olympics we go. Coco Gauff is going to be the female flag bearer for the United States at the Paris Olympics opening ceremonies. Joining 4-time NBA champion LeBron James, the Team USA announced yesterday. Also, Gauff is going to be the first U.S. tennis player to carry the flag. She's also expected to compete in both the singles and doubles on the clay courts at Roland Garros. Olympic tennis competition begins on Saturday. Had some announcements for upcoming Olympics. The 2030 Winter Olympics is going to be at the French Alps. The host by the International Olympic Committee made it on Wednesday. French President Emmanuel Macron helped present the bid to the IOC members, gave assurances that the national government will be formed after the 2024 Summer Games in Paris, and a lot of guarantees still going to happen before that. Meanwhile, the United States highly anticipated getting a Winter Olympics again. Salt Lake City was formally awarded the 2034 Winter Olympics. They were also voted in by the IOC in Paris. Utah, it's the second game hosting the Winter Olympics. They hosted back in 2002. Also, French police have arrested a Russian man who is suspected of planning to destabilize the Olympics. He's 40 years old, was detained on Tuesday after police raided his house at the request of an interior ministry. The prosecutor's office said in a statement, the evidence found that his home raised fears of his intention to organize events likely to cause destabilization during the Olympic Games. Good thing they caught this guy before any issues happen. By the way, before we go any further, my producer Frank tells me that in extra time, Argentina has tied up Morocco. So right now they are all tied up at 2. And again, in the Olympic format, it can be a draw, which, by the way, was also plus money in case you bet that too. So right now, 2-2 in extra time, Argentina, Morocco. All right, over to Major League Baseball. Mike Trout doesn't look like he's going to be back on the field for at least this week. Another injury with him last night, leaves his rehab game, still has a sore knee after he had that surgery, left after 2 innings with his rehab assignment with the Angels. Also, Christian Yelich, he has had back issues throughout his career. He exited Tuesday's game with back tightness. He, of course, is having a great year, all-star as well. Zach Wheeler was awesome yesterday. 7 innings pitched. The Phillies beat the Twins by a final of 3-0. Nick Castellanos had a double. Wheeler is one of the favorites to win the Cy Young, and Philadelphia's got one of the best records in baseball right now, 64-37. In fact, that is the best in Major League Baseball. How about this rookie, by the way, for the San Francisco Giants? Got to be honest with you, don't know a lot about him until he hit his 3rd home run and then his 4th home run. And now he's got his 5th home run in a row, 5 days in a row. Tyler Fitzgerald becomes the first Giants player since Barry Bonds to hit a home run in 5 consecutive games. Pretty impressive there on Tuesday night. Let's get to the NFL. Training camps are opening, and a lot of the discussion is about holdouts. Let's get right to them. CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys hasn't got a new contract like some of the other wide receivers have gotten. Not expected to report to training camp like the rest of the team today. He skipped the mandatory minicamp in June, naturally waiting for a contract extension that may or may not happen. Christian Darrisaw has signed a 4-year extension up to $113 million with the Minnesota Vikings. He's yet to make a Pro Bowl, but he is considered one of the core players of the Vikings, according to head coach Kevin O'Connell. Matthew Stafford has restructured his contract. He didn't get into the specifics. It's not an extension, but the head coach of the Rams, Sean McVay, says there was a lot of great dialogue. They're making an adjustment to his contract. What that means still remains to be seen. They're keeping this thing hidden. And by the way, a wide receiver retiring in the NFL, Michael Gallup, who's had a nice career in the NFL, just 28 years old. He signed a 1-year contract worth $3 million with the Raiders. Essentially is not going to live up to that contract. He's played with the Cowboys a number of years. He made the announcement official yesterday that he is retiring. And so there you have it, the very latest news, notes, and information in the National Football League and everywhere else. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be back with Mike DeCourcy.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He talked about Major League Baseball and its rule, or actually its relationship with sports betting and gambling.
Integrity is the foremost concern, and a lot of people are questioning that given all the scandals, right? There's Mercano, there's Pat Hoberg, one of the best umpires in MLB, suspended right now. We don't exactly know what he did, but he's been disciplined, and he hasn't umpired a game this year.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your mustache is falling.
Mustache is falling off. It's got to go. Skeen's got another strikeout that I don't want to take. As soon as I take it off, they're going to give up a run. I'm trying to keep it on until he comes out of the game. It's all over the place. Come on. I'm superstitious.
He's got 10. He's got 10 Ks.
He's cruising. Wow.
They pulled Skeens, by the way.
Yeah, they pulled him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The Olympic Games getting underway. Lots of soccer action going on right now. Women's side and men's side. Of course, Team USA plays later today. It's definitely an intriguing format because it doesn't necessarily favor some of the best teams because of the age restrictions. And so let's keep that in mind and maybe wonder if we could get some major upsets at the Olympic Games. Let's check in with Mike DeCourcy, of course, who's going to have a close eye, I'm sure, this afternoon on Team USA. Mike, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to catch up with you.
Oh, it's great to be here.
All right, well, Mike, let's get started with the afternoon game. And, certainly I think a lot of people are going to be focused on this, maybe not for the right things, because, Team USA doesn't necessarily have the athletes at 19 and 20, 21 years old to compete with some of these other, I would say, caliber of countries. Today, they're going up against France, who apparently does. France is minus 240 on the money line if Team USA wins. I mean, that's a 6-1 right there. I'd love to say, hey, are we in for a big upset? You think we should take a shot at this? But if we've learned anything, Mike, about Team USA's soccer program, it's to have hesitancy on taking them.
Oh, I understand the hesitance at this point because they went through a couple of exhibition games a month ago and weren't overwhelming. In all honesty, what Olympic soccer is about on the men's side is trying to establish some players, 1, 2, 3, maybe more, who can become significant contributors for the senior team over time. And it's kind of an interesting conundrum because with this particular Olympic Games, with the Copa America happening a month ago, there wasn't as much of an emphasis on trying to get players like Gio Reyna, who would be easily age eligible, or Yunus Musa, who are regulars for the senior national team. There wasn't any emphasis on getting them into the Olympics because they had the Copa as a high-level competition, a higher-level competition than this one. And so it's not as important even as it might have been had there been no U.S. team in the Copa America. It's not as important as it would have been then. But it is important in the sense that it's been, how many years is it? From 24 to 2008. That's 16 years, I think, if I'm doing the math right. That it's been so long since the United States had a men's team at the Olympic Games that Stuart Holden and Maurice Adu, who are now retired soccer analysts for Fox Sports, were on the last team. So it sort of shows you how long it's been.
Yeah, no, and look, I think that's just understanding the nature of where Team USA is at in these tournaments, and maybe as you said, the best thing that could come out of this would get a performer that could perform for them at the World Cup or wherever that would be in the future. So on FanDuel, they've got these anytime goal scorer odds, Mike. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know who these people are or going to be able to pronounce all these names. I honestly, we could go over it 10 times before a show, and I'm not going to be able to do it. But I would tell you that there is one player on France who is minus money and everybody else is plus money. So that sort of tells me that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to see a goal from this player named Lacazette on France. I don't know if you do like anyone else here, but I'm going to open up the floor to you on these players on France.
Well, I look at that French list and it sort of shows you what the nature of this competition is. Remember, this is a competition that is not a FIFA window competition, which means clubs do not have to allow their players to play in it if they don't wish. Lacazette is a veteran player, spent a lot of years at Arsenal. It was a high member of the French national team. He's one of the what they would call the overage players. So each team at the Olympics gets a under 23 roster and then 3 overage players if they wish. And Lacazette would be one of France's overage players. I'm on the lookout. He's not on the board, but I'm on the lookout for Kevin Paredes, who played in the Bundesliga this year, is one of the guys that I think a lot of American soccer followers and fans are looking to see if he can maybe break forward and make an impact that would sort of force the new coach of the senior national team, now that they've made a coaching change, the new coach, whoever that person is, will maybe look at a player like a Paredes or whoever else might step forward at these Olympics and have a different approach than Greg Berhalter would have, because Greg was kind of committed to that younger group that was at the 22 World Cup. That was his group, and he was going to continue bringing them up through the ranks. Now it's sort of with the new coaching change. Now you've got a chance for everybody who shows something to be a part of 2026 and the World Cup here in the United States.
Yeah, and again, we'll see kind of where things go here for Team USA, but France, obviously one of the very big countries involved here in the Olympics. Speaking of the Olympics, the women's team, Mike, as you know, really dynamic. It's probably between them, France, and Spain, maybe to take the gold here. They take on Zambia coming up, and honestly, I mean, I'm looking at these odds, and this is a very big waste of time. I guess we'll just show it to you here, because if you want to bet anything here, you're out of your mind. So let's go right to after they beat Zambia, the odds to win the gold medal. We have Team USA at plus 175, followed by Spain, France, and Germany, and then some long shots after that. So let's start off with your favorite to win the gold, your sleeper to win the gold, and kind of where things stand for Team USA.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the U.S. is favored, to be honest with you. They have not been scoring goals at all, and that's been a persistent problem going back to last year's World Cup, and it's not really changed. So I'm not excited about their chances to win gold. I think Spain is a better bet at this point. I am really shocked, to be honest with you, that they would be the overall favorite. And maybe they get it together, but I haven't liked the three-player front line. I wrote about this today. I talked to Emma Hayes yesterday as part of a conference call, and she's sticking with players who've played together and trying to build connections because she's a new coach. But they don't have a striker out there, and they're not scoring goals. Right. I think that's connected. I think they need to get Jaden Shaw more time. I don't think 20 minutes a game is enough time for her to do her absolute best.
All right. Well, Mike, I know you'll keep an eye on all of it. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thanks for coming on. All right. We'll take a quick time out. Sports Grid Sound Off up next.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He talked about Major League Baseball and its rule, or actually its relationship with sports betting and gambling.
Integrity is the foremost concern, and a lot of people are questioning that given all the scandals, right? There's Mercano, there's Pat Hoberg, one of the best umpires in MLB, suspended right now. We don't exactly know what he did, but he's been disciplined, and he hasn't umpired a game this year.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your mustache is falling.
Mustache is falling off. It's got to go. Skeen's got another strikeout that I don't want to take. As soon as I take it off, they're going to give up a run. I'm trying to keep it on until he comes out of the game. It's all over the place. Come on. I'm superstitious.
He's got 10. He's got 10 Ks.
He's cruising. Wow.
They pulled Skeens, by the way.
Yeah, they pulled him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Welcome back to NewsWire. First match in the Olympics, officially a draw, as it was a tie between Argentina and Morocco. Although Morocco led the entire time, and Argentina scored in extra time. So perhaps some controversy surrounding that. We'll see later on in the day as things unfold, but 2-2, they final there. If you bet draw, you got it. All right, it's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Team USA on the basketball side getting ready to tip off against Serbia coming up this weekend. Let's check in with our social media correspondent, Eve McCundy, ready to talk about the matchup.
Team USA pulled out a narrow 92-88 win over Germany on Monday to wrap up their Olympic exhibition games as they get ready to bring home the gold this weekend. Germany held an 82-81 lead in the late minutes of the fourth, but that's when LeBron would take the game over for the States. LeBron scored 11 of his game-high 20 points in the fourth quarter, personally scoring the US's last 11 points of the game, helping them deliver the victory. The win came just on the heels of LeBron being announced as the first U.S. men's basketball player to ever be the flag bearer for the Olympics. He now joins Sue Bird and Dawn Staley as the only other basketball players to ever hold that honor. Team USA rolled out the same starting lineup that they did against South Sudan with Drew Holiday, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Joel Embiid, and LeBron. There was no Kevin Durant in this one. He's still dealing with that calf injury, but he's expected to be a full participant when the Olympics get going this weekend. The States now go 5-0 in their Olympic exhibition games with 2 narrow victories against South Sudan and Germany as they get ready for the Olympics to start on Sunday, where they'll be facing Serbia as the quest for gold begins.
All right, thanks, Ian. We'll check back with Ian next week and see how Team USA does this weekend. Meanwhile, ACC conference meetings going underway right now. The conference head, Jim Phillips, had a lot to say about realignment. We've seen several teams from the Pac join the ACC. We've also heard about some rumors with Florida State and Clemson potentially on the move. Here's what Phillips had to say about conference realignment.
This is a really important time for the conference, and either you believe in what's been signed or you don't. And so we are going to do everything we can to protect and to fight the league because I see a group of student athletes there. We now have 12,000, I think 200 student athletes. And this has been a league that started way before me 71 years ago, and it will be a league that'll be around a long time after I depart. This league deserves us to take this really serious issue and to handle it appropriately. What gives me, promise and conviction of it? Because I understand, I think these schools, I understand where we're going. We've made some really good adjustments. And this conference is bigger than any one school.
Florida State and Clemson, 2 schools, have to stay in order for that conference to have success. One team in the conference, of course, are the Virginia Tech Hokies. You may remember the old days of Beamer Ball and Frank Beamer. That was when they went into conference season thinking that they could compete. Well, for the first time in a while, they're back. Brent Pry with a great season last year with the Hokies, 5-3 in the ACC, best record since 2019. Pry says that the culture has changed.
I think it goes back to being a strong brotherhood. These guys love playing together. They believe in each other. They believe in team first. They enjoy Virginia Tech. I tell it all the time. I meet with each and every player at the end of the spring. And the last question I ask them is, do you like it here? And to a man, all but 4 or 5, the response was, Coach, I don't just like it here. I love it here. And thankful for our collectives, for the Hokie Way and for Triumph. We don't go outbid anybody for anybody. But we're going to be competitive and aggressive in that space. Our guys deserve that.
We'll see if the Hokies can get back to where they were about 8 to 10 years ago. They were just an incredibly run team under Frank Beamer, defensively and special teams, maybe some slip back since then. But naturally, Pry has them headed in the right direction. One note from Major League Baseball ahead of the Brewers game today, and of course their weekend series coming up. All-star Christian Yelich placed on the injured list with a back issue. Not the first, second, third, fourth, or even 5th time. It's just Yelich has had these back issues in the past. Usually goes on the IL, spends a couple of weeks off, comes back, and is the player that he was, but obviously going to be out for at least 10 days. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. Coming up next, will New York still be able to hit that tax rate on sports betting of 51% or more? Matthew Waters will weigh in from Legal Sports Report and tell us after the break. Don't go away.
the staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup? What you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He talked about Major League Baseball and its rule, or actually its relationship with sports betting and gambling.
Integrity is the foremost concern, and a lot of people are questioning that given all the scandals, right? There's Mercano, there's Pat Hoberg, one of the best umpires in MLB, suspended right now. We don't exactly know what he did, but he's been disciplined, and he hasn't umpired a game this year.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your mustache is falling.
Mustache is falling off. It's got to go. Skeen's got another strikeout that I don't want to take. As soon as I take it off, they're going to give up a run. I'm trying to keep it on until he comes out of the game. It's all over the place. Come on. I'm superstitious.
He's got 10. He's got 10 Ks.
He's cruising. Wow.
They pulled Skeens, by the way.
Yeah, they pulled him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Very big news in the world of sports wagering, where New York State, of course, when sports betting became legal, decided to have a tax rate which some people felt was egregious, over 51%. Well, every other state wants to follow suit, so congrats to New York for setting the tone. Will it continue? Let's check in with Matthew Waters of Legal Sports Report. And Matt, this was a very big deal at the time, several years ago. New York gets sports betting. All of a sudden, they're charging 51%. The sports betting operators say, whoa, this is too much. We can't handle it. Now every state is trying to follow suit. And what I would say is maybe other states don't get to that 51%, but we've definitely seen some hikes in tax rates across the country, I think as a direct result as to what New York State was able to accomplish.
Well, Craig, I think there's no doubt that when New York set the bar so high, you had some other states go back and say, wait, we could do that? You know, some of these states went lower than it was expected to. Some of the states went higher, right? Everybody thought Pennsylvania was egregious with its 36% tax and a $10 million license fee. And it turns out that fit pretty well for that market too. Everybody jumped into that market the same way that, the operators were back and forth on this 51%, but at the end of the day, they still bid to get in the market because it's New York, right? And that was kind of the message that we heard at the National Council of Legislators from Gaming States last week. This is a meeting where lawmakers can get together and hear what other lawmakers in other states have done and get an idea of what they should be doing in their state. And it's clear that New York took this 51% tax rate, but it's New York. That's why it was able to do that. Everybody, you want to be in New York. You think about how many people, one, live in the state, but then two, travel in and out of the state. And it's just a customer acquisition must to be in New York if you're going to be a national company. But this 51%, the operators want to see it come down. And that's crazy, right? When have you known government to give back money, Craig? And that is what, as much as Troy Mackey, he's from the New York Assembly's Racing and Wagering Committee. He's the coordinator of that committee. And that's what he said. He said, quote, New York is doing extremely well. And it's one of those things that you cannot go back now, unfortunately, to reduce the tax rate. We tried to revisit that, and there was no justification. Well, you couldn't justify taking away money from education and giving it to a corporation. That is the argument we've been up against. And Craig, I think that should be the argument they are up against. These companies that run sports betting, they are businesses. They are trying to make money, and that's great. But at the end of the day, when you say 51% of that money is going to the kids and education, going back on that is not what I would call politically a good idea. They've raised billions for education, Craig, and they can't stop now. They had tried to lower the tax rate by writing a bill to let more people come in. Mackey said that the original bill should have had more operators, and it should have been taxed around 37%. That's where they thought the line should have been. And now we know that, of course, it's not. There's 9 operators and 51%. And Craig, they can complain about maybe offering worse odds, maybe doing this or that, not promoting as much, whatever, but they're going to be stuck with that 51%. So now, Craig, they're going to have to go, when it comes time for iGaming, they're going to have to fight for the tax rate there and try to get a little bit back because sports betting just isn't going to change at this point.
Yeah, and what I found really amusing last year was when some of the sports betting operators said, "Oh, we may have to pull out of New York because of the tax rate being so high." Yeah. Did that ever happen? No, and that never will happen again. 49% of billions as opposed to 49% of millions on a granular level will tell you all you need to know about how many people are betting in New York. They're not going anywhere. All right. So as you mentioned, now this is where perhaps some money can be made for the operators to sort of deflect this 51%, and that would be in iGaming. Now, how would this work as far as the revenue is concerned? Because they would, naturally more people are betting on iGaming and it's growing, but how would that exactly work in terms of benefiting that?
Well, if you're talking about with the tax rate, Craig, iGaming is taxed differently in the 7 or so jurisdictions that we have it in the U.S. Pennsylvania, for example, taxes it the same way that they tax the games at retail casinos. So the slots and tables, they pay the same rate. These operators have a chance with New York to try to get that down. And look, they came into this saying sports betting is low margin. iGaming is higher than that. We know that iGaming can make money. It's still not huge margins, but the amount of money that rolls into iGaming, the handle, the drop, is much more than sports betting. So, we're looking at iGaming and sports betting around the country. And Chad Bainon of Macquarie actually just raised his expectations for what operators will report in the second quarter. And he thinks online revenue grew 34% in the second quarter. And that is updated from his model of 21%. It was an interesting second quarter. Slower, of course, it always is. But we had some interesting battles in the NBA playoffs. And, we have these other operators now, the ESPN Bet, the Fanatics, we have Bet365 entering new states. And so we want to see the slower months still growing, right? We want to see the older states still doing their part and still adding more customers and seeing their customers betting more. At the same time, you want these operators to still be lowering their promotional spending and getting to that profitability line, right, Craig? And so Chad thinks that 3 sports books are in good shape: DraftKings, FanDuel, and BetRivers. He thinks that they're set up nicely to outperform in the second quarter. And based on New York, right, you can look at those numbers and they report by operator. It gives you an idea of what the larger market overall might be looking like. Chad said that he's a little wary on what the hold could look like for BetMGM and Caesars. So, right now we are still seeing growth in iGaming and sports betting, but obviously that growth could be a whole heck of a lot more for iGaming if more states jumped on. And New York is one of those states that people are looking at to possibly do it next year, Craig.
Yeah, again, big stories coming next year, I think, with iGaming and also the legalization of sports betting, maybe in a new state. We just haven't gotten a lot of that this year. All right, FanDuel, DraftKings, household names in sports betting. There are some others. let's give BetMGM the credit. They may not be first or second, but they're right there, third, fourth, etc. New CEO Gavin Isaacs from Entain jumps on board. What does this mean for their company?
Yeah, if you know casino gaming, Craig, then you know the name Gavin Isaacs. He's done some really big things in the industry. He's been with huge companies. He was the CEO of Scientific Games and then the chairman when they owned OpenBet. OpenBet is a huge sports betting supplier in the industry. After he left Scientific Games, he took chairman positions and board positions at some pretty important companies. He was chairman at SB Tech, which is the platform tech provider that DraftKings bought. He was also on the DraftKings board, and he was an advisor to the board of Jackpocket, which DraftKings just bought. So he's been in the industry. He's been cutting his teeth on sports betting. And look, Entain, they admitted last year that they were not fast enough to get U.S.-focused products to BetMGM to compete well enough with these big names. Gavin Isaacs is not going to let that happen. He's going to come in. He's going to right the ship of the tech side of BetMGM, and shareholders should definitely be excited about that.
Yeah, would agree. Well, Matt, great stuff, great breakdown, and thanks again for coming on NewsWire. We'll catch up again next week.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, Matthew Waters, you can read more about his stories and all of our guest contributors at Legal Sports Report on their great website, which is legalsportsreport.com. We'll take a quick time out. Baseball trade deadline coming up next week. Which prospects could go? We'll tell you next.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup? What you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He talked about Major League Baseball and its rule, or actually its relationship with sports betting and gambling.
Integrity is the foremost concern, and a lot of people are questioning that given all the scandals, right? There's Mercano, there's Pat Hoberg, one of the best umpires in MLB, suspended right now. We don't exactly know what he did, but he's been disciplined, and he hasn't umpired a game this year.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your mustache is falling.
Mustache is falling off. It's got to go. Skeen's got another strikeout that I don't want to take. As soon as I take it off, they're going to give up a run. I'm trying to keep it on until he comes out of the game. It's all over the place. Come on. I'm superstitious.
He's got 10. He's got 10 Ks.
He's cruising. Wow.
They pulled Skeens, by the way.
Yeah, they pulled him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to have my friend Aram Leighton here on the show from Just Baseball and Just Baseball Media. Of course, he's getting ready for the baseball trade deadline, and he and I have, go back quite a way before he became this huge entrepreneur, new websites, podcasts, everything else, and he joins us now here on the show. Not so much about the trade deadline, I guess, but about the kids that could be involved in potential deals, because honestly, we know nothing right now. But Aram, great to have you here on the show and great to see you. What's going on?
It's an absolute honor. It's so cool to be on with you, Craig. I mean, I have to thank you a lot for everything that I've been able to do. You've showed me the ropes in a lot of ways. So it's an honor to be here.
Oh,
Excited
come
to
on.
chop it up.
All right, hold on. Stop. You're doing a great job, man, on your own. Okay, so we want action, we want activity, but you know the game as well as I do. That's not the way baseball works. The way baseball works is you tell us when the deadline is, and we'll do everything right at the deadline. I mean, whether it's the winter or whether it's the trade deadline, I mean, this league just operates amongst the last minute. So I would not expect to see a lot happen until we get to the 30th. Now, that day, I'm sure we could get, a lot of trades and stuff like that, but I don't know how you see it, but that's sort of the way that I see this playing out, as usual.
Yeah, it just seems to be the way that it always goes, right? And it's a little frustrating in one sense because you want to see it start to get going a bit earlier and have a little bit more clarity. But now with the expanded playoffs, and you know it as well as anybody, teams just they don't know until the last minute, right? So especially with how much teams like to hold on to their prospects, which I know we're going to talk about, they don't want to deplete that farm unless they're positive they got a good shot. And it's crazy that 5 games with the expanded playoffs can make all the difference in the world here.
Yeah, it does. And let's start with the Orioles. They're here in South Florida. I think I'm going tonight. I'm not positive, but my son makes these decisions. It's not me. So we're going to throw a graphic up of players that the Orioles are not going to get, but let's show you them. Tariq Skubal, Garrett Crochet, Mason Miller, Tanner Scott. He could just switch jerseys. He's already done it once with Baltimore and Miami. So the way that I view the Orioles, I'd love to be wrong here, is I think their general manager, their vice president of baseball operations, President Mike Elias, I don't think he changes at all the way that he's operated over the last few years. It's not that they hoard prospects. It's just that they have a long-term vision. They want to compete every single year. And I just don't think they're ever going to make a huge sacrifice for the now that sacrifices their prospect capital for the future. Again, they have a lot of kids. They could trade them all and go for it, but I don't know. I personally don't see it. Maybe somebody off this list goes in a trade, but Joey Ortiz is the best player that they've traded in the last 4 or 5 years, and he at the time wasn't even considered that.
Yeah, and that's the craziest part. And he's also a guy that just had no clear path to opportunity because of the infield talent that they have, and also a little bit older, just similar to the Connor Norby situation, another guy that seems like he's more likely to go. It seems like the second tier guys for them that could be tier 1 prospects in a lot of other systems seem to be the guys that they're okay with potentially moving. But the names that are on the graphic, in front of us there, those are guys that, are tier 1 prospects just about anywhere. And most of them or a couple of them are top 10 prospects in the game. 3, I would say, in my opinion, are top 10 prospects in the game. So do we see the Orioles totally going in another direction off of that? I don't know, but they do have the capital to absolutely outbid anybody. And I think even with holding on to a couple of their top guys, they could still outbid just about anybody. The only thing that gives me a little bit of confidence with it is that they're going to have a 40-man roster crunch. We see the Rays go through it all the time. This is a farm system that's been as loaded with guys that are going to have to be added to the 40 either this year or the next year. That might make it a little bit easier to cash in, maybe, given that they don't want to have to deal with that crunch.
Yeah, I mean, Basallo is a phenomenal catcher. They could have traded him in the offseason. They could have traded him last year. They have Adley Rutschman, but they just don't want to trade these guys. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that changes on the 30th. So Seattle is another interesting club, Aram, because, I think they sort of owe it to the fans here to go for it a little bit, but I'm just not quite sure what they can accomplish at this point. Their offense is just so inept. They do have a nice farm system of some young players, which we'll take a look at here. Do you see any of these players being involved in a deal that can get them something back of substance that can help them down the stretch?
It seems like Logan Evans, is a guy it's part of their plan this year. Even they had him throwing, 1 inning and 2 inning spurts of late to preserve his innings so that he can throw later into the season. He's been a revelation for them, just an absolute breakout as just another arm as they continue to do that. Locklear seems like he's going straight to first base after they DFA'd Ty France, and Locklear's earned that. A really impressive power bat that has improved in a lot of questions that people had this year. And then Emerson, they seem to feel like he's untouchable. So those guys, and Carmelo tore his ACL. So that's what makes it a little bit tougher. But another farm system here where you have Harry Ford, a catcher that a lot of people would love to have, and doesn't have a direct line to opportunity anytime soon. Lazaro Montes is a clear cut, one of the best bats in the minor leagues. Like, they still have a bunch of other guys that they could move and still go get somebody like a Jazz Chisholm, who I know may not bring in the most insane package that people may think. Like, I still feel like the Mariners could put together a package of their second tier, quote unquote, prospects with Ty Pete and several others, and be able to go get a Brandon Lau, maybe not Elaine Thomas, but a Jazz Chisholm or Michael Conforto. So that does make me a little bit optimistic that even from their second tier, they could go get a guy.
Yeah, cannot imagine that they would not at least make a little bit of a push next week. Let's close it out with the teams in the National League that have decisions to make. I kind of feel like we can eliminate the bottom of this here with the Cubs and the Reds. It does feel like those teams are not going to at least add, so it would be everybody else. Any idea in your mind of you think a team that does have enough to add to what they have here besides those teams?
I think the Padres, it's AJ Preller kind of, I would assume kind of fighting for his job here, right? Like they got to show something this year. And I know he's traded away from the farm, but I want to see what an AJ Preller with his back against the wall looks like. They still have a strong farm. I know Robbie Snelling and Dylan Lesko have had down years. Are two arms that a lot of people would absolutely love. Leo DeVries is one of the more impressive young prospects in baseball. They've got Graham Pauley, Homer Bush. I could see them still pushing the chips forward here because, we know he's all in, and the system's still good enough.
All right, Aram, great stuff as always. Great to see you and catch up with you. You and I will be following this all through the deadline. Thanks again for coming on.
Can't wait. I'm sure we'll be in touch plenty. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick time out and be back to wrap it up with some last licks.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He talked about Major League Baseball and its rule, or actually its relationship with sports betting and gambling.
Integrity is the foremost concern, and a lot of people are questioning that given all the scandals, right? There's Mercano, there's Pat Hoberg, one of the best umpires in MLB, suspended right now. We don't exactly know what he did, but he's been disciplined, and he hasn't umpired a game this year.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your mustache is falling.
Mustache is falling off. It's got to go. Skeen's got another strikeout that I don't want to take. As soon as I take it off, they're going to give up a run. I'm trying to keep it on until he comes out of the game. It's all over the place. Come on. I'm superstitious.
He's got 10. He's got 10 Ks.
He's cruising. Wow.
They pulled Skeens, by the way.
Yeah, they pulled him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. You know, there are some topics that are really dicey to cover here on the show. One of the things I never do here is politics, because I think you're always just going to get somebody upset. so I just stay right down the middle. Another one is maybe the first topic we're going to cover here. I'm going to take a shot and do it, though. Time now for Last Licks. All right, it's a bed. As you see there, it is a bed. Let me see if I can get through this without getting fired. So the Olympic Games are getting ready to start, and naturally all of the athletes are descending upon Paris because that's where they're holding the Olympics this year. And just like they did several years ago, the board at the Olympics has given some very unusual beds to the athletes. Now, it's not to say they don't get to sleep, and it's not to say that the beds are totally uncomfortable, but the beds are just strictly cardboard, apparently. And the reason why they are strictly cardboard is because they don't want the athletes mingling with each other on the beds during the Olympics. I'm not making this up. Indeed, this is true. So apparently, by making the beds less comfortable, they figure that people are less likely to get with each other, I guess, is the fair way to put it, during the Olympics. I did not know that this was even an issue. I had never heard of this even being an issue. I think the athletes just want to sleep comfortably before they try and win a gold medal. But hey, if this is something they think that works, and maybe, obviously, if they're doing this, there must have been some past issues, right? There had to be. You don't just do this without having past issues. You make an uncomfortable bed, and then I guess people are uncomfortable doing the thing. There you go. All right, Joe Burrow is the new Slim Shady of the Cincinnati Bengals. What do I mean by that? Is that Joe Burrow or is that Eminem? Yeah, Joe Burrow has gone from brown to blonde. How about that? Joe Burrow is decided to dye his hair ahead of the 2024 NFL season. Now, Burrow, of course, last year had a very serious injury, missed more than, I think, almost close to like half the season. Jake Browning came in, did a pretty good job for the Bengals. Maybe the injury has caused him to go blonde. I would tell you that usually this is done for luck. Maybe this is the reason why, and Burrow just wants to go blonde to have a better season, to stay healthy. But I could tell you, if the Bengals lose a game or two, you ain't going to see this blonde hair anymore. So more like Eminem and less like Joe Burrow. Indeed, that is the case. It's just, sort of hard to believe. I saw the picture yesterday. Frank, my producer, sent this to me. I'm like, I thought it was, this is Eminem reporting to Bengals camp, like a Snoop Dogg's at the Olympics. But no, that's actually Burrow. All right, finally, let's get to the rage that is in Pittsburgh. Everybody is following Paul Skeens. He's probably the most talked about player, fair to say, in Major League Baseball. I think that is fair. Maybe Aaron Judge, Yankees, whatever. But Paul Skeens is like the most popular player going right now in baseball. And the kids are all getting involved with this. If you may have seen a clip, Dave Sharapan from our network, he put the mustache on with the Pirates jersey. Now the kids are doing it too, showing up to Pirates games with the Skeens mustache. It's in, it's back, it's hot, and as long as this guy keeps pitching 7-8 innings a game and keeps striking everybody out and wins the Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young, I guarantee you, guaranteed, at some point either this year or next season, the Pirates will be handing out, if they haven't already, mustache night at PNC Park. So get ready for that as well. Kids wearing mustaches. Love to see it. All right, that will do it for our show today. Let me give you an idea as to what's coming up next. Again, we got live Olympic action now every day through all the way next week. So this is going to be a ton of fun. So make sure you catch Kaplan and crew live. They're coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern. They're on the West Coast, so they'll have the latest on everything happening in Paris. That's followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast. Game time decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern, in-game live prime time, and with a recap of all of the soccer action going on this afternoon, including Team USA. You got Sports Rage late night with Gabe, so make sure you catch that show as well. Thanks to Matthew Waters from Legal Sports Report, Mike DeCourcy, and, of course, Aram Leighton from the Just Baseball Network. Also to our producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll be back for our next edition of NewsWire tomorrow with the very latest in the Olympics, and also NFL training camp has started, so let the controversies on and off the field begin as football season is just about here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire.